So we're going to talk today about how artificial intelligence, AI, can help to save you a ton of time. I promise you, if you're listening to this currently, you're going to be light years ahead of your peers that are in this space, and people who aren't subscribing to these conversations, they're going to wish that they had this AI chat and really understood what it can do for them personally and professionally. For those of you who don't know what AI is, like I said, I feel like that's a good place to start. AI is artificial intelligence. So let's break down those two words. Artificial intelligence, when you think about just the word intelligence in of itself, you think of a brain, like someone who's smart. So artificial intelligence is basically replicating human intelligence, so like the human brain. And it takes its computer brain and it spits out basically the best thing based on what we tell it to do. And when you think about it, a computer brain can hold way more information than our human brains ever could. That's why I'm a really big fan. My human brain can barely remember anything as it is. I have to write everything down. So anyway, most of the time too with AI, something that excites me is the fact that it does it so quickly. Like the speed at which it's able to deliver the best possible results, it's incredible. You can now do in one day what it would normally take you 2 weeks to do. You can do in 5 minutes what it would take you a whole day to do. So it actually frees you up to do things that matter and to get things happening. The ERG movement is all about employee resource groups done better. It's forward movement in the employee resource group space. So forward movement is currently doing things quicker with not just quicker, because obviously quicker doesn't always give the best results, but quicker with better quality. And that's all what this conversation is about. A lot of people don't realize that they already use AI in their everyday life. There's a lot of people who are resistant to this conversation because they feel like, oh, robots are going to take over the world. I'm really not into AI. Here's examples of AI that currently exist in our daily lives that we may not even recognize. So for instance, virtual assistants that you use. For instance, like some popular ones of those would be like Siri or Alexa. I don't want to say it too loud just in case mine heard me, but those are virtual assistants. That is using AI to give you, so when you give it a command, it uses that computer brain that we talked about, and then it gives you the best possible output, whether that's like giving you an answer to something or setting up an alarm or who knows what it may be. That's an example of AI. Another one, spam filters. Who in here really likes when their inbox is nice and clean? A lot of people don't realize, but in your email inbox, whenever you see something that says this is marked as spam, that's AI that's going through your computer, that's going through your email accounts and your incoming emails and marking things based on what it looks like. It's taking its computer brain, analyzing historically what spam typically looks like, and then it marks it as spam. Navigation apps, a big one a lot of people don't realize is AI. How do you think that these apps are able to update on the spot with the best possible results of how to get from point A to point B? That is also using artificial intelligence. Fraud alerts. So if you ever get those on your credit card, I know that those are super helpful. That's an example of a computer marking something as potentially fraudulent based on irregular behavior. So it's studying some input data, in this case, your normal spending habits, and then it'll mark things as fraud if it does not match what that is. And the one that a lot of people don't realize is even just the smart home devices. A lot of the time, it's not just that they're connected to internet, but they're also connected to some form of artificial intelligence. So for instance, if you have like a smart security system, it'll detect, some of them might detect on the camera, like, oh, that looks like a person who's approaching your house. That looks like it's a package that's left in front of your house. That's using artificial intelligence to do something. Artificial intelligence, not only does it save you a ton of time, and it shows up in places where you can't be everywhere at once. So now with the time that you could have been spending doing those things, you can now focus it into things that matter. That's the same premise of this call. More obvious forms of AI, I think that I say obvious too, because I think a lot of people don't realize that these are forms of AI because they haven't really been presented to us as such. So we've kind of been eased into the process, but now there are some more obvious ones that are being presented as a form of artificial intelligence. So in the corporate space, if you hop on a Zoom call, you might see someone's Otter AI or Note Taker AI. So an AI that joins the Zoom meeting. And then after it joins, it note takes everything that someone says. It transcribes it essentially. It says note takes, but that's essentially what they're doing. They're listening to the conversation and taking down notes based on who said it too. So it can separate this and say like, oh, person A said this, person B said this. Very, very helpful. Even in some cases, it can go in and it can summarize the entire meeting in a paragraph or so. So you don't even have to be in the meeting. Now imagine that. And this isn't even one of the two platforms that I'm talking about in today's conversation, but just imagine that being able to have someone basically in the meeting for you and still deliver a really comprehensive summary of what happened. So once again, the whole idea here is that you're able to focus more on things that matter. So Otter AI, that's a really popular one. Another one that's used a lot in the corporate space would also be Grammarly, for instance. So or something similar, basically something that goes in and it corrects your grammar, proofreads what you're doing. You can even have the Google Chrome plugin where it'll just analyze all of your documents for you. You don't even have to copy and paste the text. That's another form of AI because then it's going to assess what you've written and then based on past examples of well-written pieces. And when I say past examples, I'm not even talking about like one or two. It has millions of examples, if not billions of examples. And that being said, then it uses that computer brain once again to give you the best possible output. Let's talk about these two pieces of software that I'm a really big fan of when it comes to AI. The first one, Script. I'm a really big fan of Descript, the video editing software. If you do any type of events at your company, something that I talk about a lot and something that's coming up in a episode of the podcast is coming out soon where we talk about how you can allow an event to live on beyond the end of the event. And really short form content is the way to go. Or even if you do pre-recorded content, how are you polishing that up and making it so that people are able to consume it in a really digestible way, long story short. So with the Script, you're able to not only have a streamlined way of editing your video, but more than that, you're able to transcribe it. So if you want captions, if you want those like in your face type of captions it's transcribed by the program, you can go in and you can edit it if there are some mistakes, but it'll really help to create more engaging short form and long form video. I use it for every single ERG Movement podcast. So if you see on the screen any types of captions, just know that it came from the Script. It makes it super easy to edit. So when you do have these longer events and you have recordings and you're putting them out and people aren't watching them, consider using the Script, which will really make it easy for you to break it into shorter, bite-sized pieces. And with those templates even, you can then save it this way in come future events. It'll be that much easier. You're not creating a template from scratch. You're just taking out all the best parts of that event and you're plugging it into the template and boom, you can have like 10 of the best clips out of an event in under an hour that way. 10. Can you imagine how long that would take? Normally, I mean, you can still put out the full recording by all means, but I'm telling you, you're going to get a lot more engagement with these smaller, less than 5 minute, even better if it's less than 3 minutes. Think TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, that type of short form content. That's what people are able to digest. And especially when you think about it, we've mentioned this before, but longer form content in general is just no longer the wave when it comes to employee resource group programming. People don't have that type of attention span, and especially if it's not providing them with real value. So if you're able to take out the best 5 minutes of a lengthy 1 hour event, just know that your members will be thankful for it. The second piece of software would be apparently it's not that well known. I think it's just well known for me just because it's all over my TikTok feed, just because I've been obsessed with it from the day I heard about it, which is ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT is interesting, but it is like a language model AI. So basically it's able to utilize prompts that you can give it a prompt and it will spit out in 2 seconds like the best possible response to that prompt. Now, when I say that, it's very vague and it's like that intentionally because there are infinite use cases for this. When I tell you all, I use this every single day. They just rolled out a pro model, but to be fair, there is a free model that works just as good. I've been using it for a really long time. So just know you don't have to pay the $20 a month or so. But that being said, even with the free model, you can do so much. You can still do all the same things. Really, the only real difference with the pro model is because so many people are hopping onto it and it's growing so fast, it'll kind of give you priority to enter and to be able to use it. ChatGPT, but we'll go back for a second and talk about how this can help you specifically, whether you're leading an ERG program or you're just an ERG leader. Here are some ways that it can serve you. So 2 things. Let me provide some context on ChatGPT. Step further than transcription is now that you have a document that outlines what was said in a meeting or in an event, how are you then able to turn that into written content for your ERG? So let's just say you want to do a blog post or something like that. I can literally go on and like record myself just talking about a topic that I want to do a blog post in. But I'm not the best writer, so I'm not a fan of writing. So if I just verbally say it, I can get all of my words out. From there, I can take the transcription, I can plug it into ChatGPT, and I can say, write me a blog post that best summarizes what I'm trying to say. And it will do that in literally less than, when I say it's like 2 seconds, I'm being so literal. It will start writing immediately, and all that will be done in definitely less than 15 seconds. I don't think people realize what I'm trying to say here with the potential. You're going to be light years ahead of other people in the space if you start using this now. So that's an example of how the transcription piece can be plugged into ChatGPT. Another example would be as an editor or as a proofreader. Now you can have Grammarly and things like that. There are free plugins that you can use, but even if you just want a different method of it, you can copy and paste your text directly into there. Or here's a fun one that I really like to play with every now and then is if you want to say it using a different tone. So let's just say maybe you're upset maybe at a response that someone has given you to something, but you don't want to respond in like an aggressive manner. You can write your message in ChatGPT and say, respond to this person's question about XYZ using this paragraph here, but write it in a way that's not aggressive or something like that. It's so useful when it comes to communication in that aspect. So, but I also said editor. So take that as you will. These are super broad topics because I really want you all to get creative here in what this could mean for you and your ERG. As we do this, I really want you to write down some ideas. What are some ways that I could use an editor in my daily work? What are some ways that I could use transcription into text? So, okay, another one, translator. This is big for me. I know for me, like the corporate jargon, not my thing at all. I think I don't ever use the word jargon outside of in a corporate quote unquote professional setting. For me, then that makes it easy for me to put my thoughts into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this in a more professional way. When I tell you all, one of my biggest struggles in the corporate space, because if you all know me, I don't come from a traditional corporate background, but it's not like I don't have the knowledge there. And I feel like the reason why that disconnect is so hard for people to get is because when you come from this like college background and you've been in corporate for a while, you speak differently. Now for me, I don't even have to think about that, where I have spent hours stressing over the specific wording of a document or like a proposal that I'm trying to put out there just because I need it to be said in the exact right way. And I'll still come up short sometimes. Now, when I tell you, I have used this personally where I've plugged in my thoughts just raw as they are. I've said, rewrite this in a professional manner. And it comes out so good. It's like, it's something for me because I know like I said, I've spent hours, like I will have to mentally prepare myself. Like, okay, we're going to have to spend the rest of the evening doing this, probably a good 5 to 6 hours of pumping out this document, where now I can just have my thoughts, and this can be done in less than an hour, sometimes less than 30 minutes if you already have your thoughts outlined. It can even be just bullet points. Maybe you don't have full thoughts, but you want to turn that into something, and then you can build off of it. The time that is being saved is incredible. Okay, I put translator for that. But also, even if maybe you're speaking to someone and you don't speak their language as well, I've also heard that ChatGPT has really good grammar when it comes to speaking in other languages as well. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, I haven't tried it myself personally, but I have heard that it's actually quite impressive when it comes to languages, various languages, and translating there. Another way I say, and I don't know really how to word this, but it will eliminate a lot of the low level work that like entry level type of repetitive tasks. If you really get into AI, it will completely eliminate this for you. Where this might have been like, oh, we need a separate person on our team to cover all the work we do, that is no longer a factor. When I tell you, it speeds it up. And there are some incredible AIs out here, AI technology, that even I haven't dove into them all yet because there's so many. But just know there's going to be a shift in the space, not even in this space particular, because I don't know how long that's going to take. But there's going to be a shift in the world over the next maybe like 5 to 10 years, where we'll start to see artificial intelligence integrated very closely with every single job that's being done. I'm very intrigued by this and how it'll show up in the ERG space in particular, but that's why I keep saying over and over, you're going to be so much further ahead of others if you hop on this wave now. If you can do in 2 weeks what other people take 2 quarters to do, can you imagine? For your personal brand, for your professional life, it's incredible. I can't say it enough. I just need more people to get on the bandwagon. From here, we'll just jump straight into some tips. I don't want to say downfalls, but also some tips just in general when it comes to AI usage, specifically with ChatGPT, just to be aware of. The main thing top of mind is bias, maybe some harmful stereotypes. Now, I'm not saying that in a way to say like I'm not making light of it, but I'm saying with this computer brain, right? The way that this computer brain learned is off of existing data that it's being fed. And we all know that when it comes to various communities, historically, I mean, I don't even want to say especially before 2021, we're definitely making some strides on the D&I front. But when you think about it, 2021 and before, this is going back infinitely, okay? There are some harmful things that have been said about certain communities. I'm not saying that this is extreme, because there are some rules that basically the ChatGPT and other language model creators have put in place to purposely try to like fight back against the harmful stereotypes and the biases, but you will still see it come across on occasion. So just know that by plugging something into ChatGPT, it's not a one and done. There will need to be some finesse that you do, to kind of craft the message. And in some cases, you might just have to fact check some things too. I posted something on our TikTok page a while ago, specifically around like the origin of hush puppies, which for me, it was like, this obviously is something that comes from the Black community. It's just something I've always known. But when I first typed it in ChatGPT, they actually accredited the enslaved person's owners for the creation of hush puppies. And it was like, but then when I asked ChatGPT, well, rewrite and add some context on how enslaved people contributed to the creation of this, it gave a completely different answer. So when it comes to specific facts, I would definitely fact check. Once again, it's also not connected to the internet. So if you're trying to ask about anything that's happened from 2021 and forward, it won't have any context on it. So for instance, the ERG movement model won't have any relevant context on it because I didn't put it out until January 2023. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go and check that out. But All that to say, that is something to be aware of. Another one would be, well, we kind of touched on this, but even then, an AI robot in this sense, it's never going to replicate a human perfectly. So even like a lot of the language that will be used, you'll just probably have to go through it and make it sound a little bit more so like yourself, or even just like written in the type of with the type of jargon that you use at your specific company or lingo. Because honestly, I don't even say jargon, really with the lingo that you use at your company. So for instance, I've been at companies where DRI comes up a lot. Even right now, I always reference the ERG DRI, directly responsible individual. But if you're not at a company where they don't, like if you're at a company where they don't say DRI, you'll likely have to change that. Now, granted, you can always use ChatGPT and just say, rewrite this and exchange the word DRI for something else. So that's always an option, but we're not even going to go into that. The point is, you're probably going to have to finesse it a little bit, especially if you're not writing like a professional document. It might sound a little robotic, so just be aware of that as well. It does use its computer brain. However, with ChatGPT specifically, their computer brain is not hooked up to the internet. And really, it's only accurate as of 2021, which is one of the downfalls of ChatGPT, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, the amount of knowledge is still very much there. So I still recommend it. There are some that are connected to the internet, such as Chat Sonic. I haven't personally used that one, but you can look into it. Definitely, I've heard it's the same exact thing, except for you can plug it in directly to the internet. In that case, transcription would be something that's relevant with ChatGPT. Lack of emotional intelligence, so it probably won't, I mean, it's a robot, so it lacks like that sense of empathy as well. So not all the responses might be the best when it comes to factoring in that piece. Now that they do put some parameters around it, like I mentioned earlier, so just something to be aware of. Information isn't always 100% accurate. We kind of just talked about that with the hush puppy thing. Reliability on tech, that was something, because I think you can become a little addicted when you start. Granted, like I said, I think that in the future, all of our jobs will definitely be more closely integrated with artificial intelligence. But until then, just know that there's like a lot of technical issues that are still being worked out. So it can be extremely frustrating when you're solely reliant on these platforms and they're not working at like 100%. So just be aware of that. Have a backup plan. Don't wait until the last minute until you need something, because especially with ChatGPT, they can reach capacity, and that means that it's hard for you to get in if they reach capacity.